Ladies ain't allowed.
I'm not a lady. I'm a doctor.
Dr. Quinn is my favorite. Not my favorite show, Lord, Dr. Quinn's just my favorite, the person. I can't think of a better woman to follow through the wild west of a picturesque Colorado filmed on the set of MASH. The perfect sick day companion, Dr. Quinn. I want to watch her and her handsome boyfriend succeed despite the rampant bullshit that surrounds them. And Jane Seymour plays her perfectly because, guess what, kids? She's also perfect. The more I learn about this actress, the more I know who I want to be when I grow up. Let's go ahead and get to the pilot episode, originally aired as a standalone movie with the hopes of later becoming a show. Dr. Quinn was born on February 15th, 1833 in Boston, Massachusetts. She was the youngest of 5 children, 4 before her, all girls. Her father, being a man of science, firmly believed that the odds would finally dictate the birth of a long-awaited son. He would be named Michael.
I was named Michaela. I finally received my MD from the Women's Medical College of Pennsylvania. To my mother's dismay, my father made me a partner in his practice. And for 7 years, we worked side by side.
Until we open on a dead body. Oh, I forgot I brought some doctor merch. Heck yeah. Which we find out is a very common sight for Dr. Quinn Medicine Woman, because this show is not afraid to kill. With most medical shows, there's a revolving door of patients who we never have to see again, so the drama isn't really there. No matter how sympathetic or well-written the character is, our emotional attachments are to the doctors. We've been with them for so long, and we want them to succeed. We don't want the patient to die and make the doctor sad. This is a small town, and the show treats it as such. For better or worse, or for worse, or for worse, or for even worse, we find ourselves giving a whether some of these people live or die. I have shed genuine tears over some of these deaths. And by the end, nobody's really safe. It's a rough world we're living in, and the show does not soften the blow. Oh, of course, there are still plenty of outsiders that need help, and we do have entire episodes dedicated to them. In short, there's filler, plenty of it, but even that's pretty good. The show does a really good job bringing in new and interesting cases. You get to see early stages of cosmetic surgery. There's a super fun narcolepsy episode. There's an incredibly emotional episode about someone with dementia, and it does hit hard, even though you've never met the character before. God, we're 1:05 into the first episode. I'm sorry, everyone. The dead body that we see is Dr. Quinn's father, now dead from something so sudden and scary that I can't think about it too long without adding a new fear to keep me up at night. She's obviously devastated and now a bit aimless because no one come to woman doctor, man doctor, only good doctor. Now she has to take action.
I found an advertisement in the Globe for a town doctor in the Colorado Territory.
After a very cold goodbye from her mother, she's off. You'll never see this actress again, by the way. She'll later be played by Georgianne Johnson. What we'll later recognize as the opening title music plays, Dr. Mike muses on what she's leaving behind and faces the anxiousness of what lies ahead. Passing a group of people, she very clearly tells the audience that she was raised by her father not to be racist. With that, a side note. A lot of the conflict we see derives from the relationship between the townsfolk of Colorado Springs, the nearby tribe of Cheyenne, and the army. The show takes great lengths to show the lies and atrocities committed by the U.S. government to Native Americans. We see the hostility mounting from just an ominous presence to annihilation. The worst part is you see the steps taken. You see how a government can almost eliminate an entire people by withholding and withholding until they're forced to fight, which the government can then use as an excuse to kill and then to withhold even more. You don't have to look hard to see that the goal is complete erasure. This aspect of the writing, I think, is very important and very well executed. With that said, we only really get one mouthpiece from the Cheyenne side of the conflict. This was the 90s. Oh, hey, Bean. Don't touch the tomahawk. No, not my Dr. Bird. You gotta chill.
Never.
We are going to get you a blanket.
Did someone say blanket?
If I put the blanket right here, will you lay down and be good?
Yes, mother.
It's his favorite blanket.
What's going on here?
Blanket, will he lay on it? Or
Is this how theater kids threaten people?
On the keyboard. Larry Sellers, the actor who played Cloud Dancing, Emmy-nominated and philanthropist, by the way, had conditions when offered the role. He told the producers that for him to play the part, the character must be brought across as a representation of the real Native American, both of tribal ethnicity and as a whole of the Native American peoples. He was determined to point out stereotypes when he found them. Why would he speak broken English while Sully spoke Cheyenne fluently? Cloud Dancing, as a character, is an absolute delight. As a fellow doctor, he's dedicated, passionate. He's a cheeky little bastard with a great sense of humor, though the writing does sometimes fall to stereotype and white saviorism runs rampant in these plots. It is a relief to see him be his own character. Sully is his best friend, but he's not used as a mystical tool or an endless wisdom fountain. They disagree. They help each other. They give advice, and they have their own beliefs. They drive their own stories. They give little hugs, and they call each other brother, and I love it. I'm not an expert at any facet of history, though I did have my Franklin expedition of 1845 phase. I should get back into that. That was good. That looked good on me. I feel unqualified to critique any representation problems that aren't glaringly obvious. Larry Sellers is the expert, and I'd like to trust that the writers took all of his notes to heart. I can't find a lot of resources saying this was not the case. I will, however, encourage any experts to tell me what's up in the comments. I'm always eager to learn, and it's a good discussion. We need more of that discussion with Dr. Quinn Medicine Woman. I do think that the discussion about the writing and representation is still warranted, since Larry Sellers isn't Cheyenne. His heritage is Osage Cherokee and was later adopted into the Lakota tribe. With an actual Cheyenne on set, even just as an advisor, we would have gotten more specific research. I do realize, however, the Cheyenne population is very low and there may be limited resources, but come on, they still could have found multiple voices. Sorry, waiting to see if there's another tangent lurking around here somewhere. While Dr. Mike says she's not racist, she can't help but feel a bit fear seeing different people for the first time.
But as I saw real Indians for the first time, I could not reason with the knots in my stomach.
That's realistic, self-checking, social stigma affects you whether you want it to or not. Dr. Quinn just has to learn for herself. She's good at that. So she rolls into town. Ewy mud. And searches for the Reverend, who's setting her up as the new doctor. The very first episode is a movie. As such, the actors, minus Jane Seymour, were not prepared to sign on for a long-running show. A lot of them had work elsewhere and were only able to stick around for the movie. With that, this is uncanny and weird for me, and I don't want to look at these people because I don't know them and I don't trust them. I won't even talk about them until they're correct, unless it's vital. Dr. Mike trips her way over to the church. The Reverend's hair was played by a different actor here, and it gave me a shock because it's so awful, and it's very nice after the pilot.
Telegram said Michael Quinn.
I believe I spelled it out quite clearly. That's Michael with an A. My father was expecting a male.
So was I.
Here we see the Cheyenne now living in town, and we see Sully for the first time.
Army's negotiating with the Indians for all the land north of Sand Creek.
And Dr. Mike does what we all do when we see Sully for the first time. It's unavoidable. The mud will consume us all. And Sully sees Dr. Mike for the first time and does what we all do. See what she's up to, of course. The Reverend's ready to ship her back off to Boston, and she just flat out says no. This town needs a doctor.
Colorado Springs needs a doctor, and I happen to be one.
But you don't understand. No one around here's ever heard of a lady doctor.
Well, there's always a first time.
They argue, but in the meantime, she needs a place to stay, and Dr. Mike meets her fate. See, this is Charlotte. She's gonna die by the end of this episode, and she's gonna make Dr. Mike raise her kids. Here we meet Matthew, Colleen, and the bane of my existence, Brian.
Your dress sure is dirty.
Listen, if you don't like hearing a grown-ass woman talking shit about a little kid, for however long this project is gonna take, back out now. I don't know anything about this actor. I have no opinions on his performance, as he is a child, and that's super unfair and rude. But the character, I can't stand this kid. I don't know how I'm going to coherently narrate my disdain without sounding like a child-hating freak. We'll figure this out as we go. Dr. Quinn tries to talk to the army about the Cheyenne relations and gets slapped in the face with the blatant reality of what's going on.
I believe their reasoning is that the Indians were here first.
I am fully satisfied that to kill the Red Rebel is the only way to have peace and quiet.
Dr. Mike goes to post a notice for a place to live, and in walks Sully and Chief Blackkettle. There's a bit of a scuffle when the character that I won't introduce yet because he's played by an imposter points to a sign that's in his store. And Dr. Quinn, as Dr. Quinn can only ever do, gets involved.
What are you doing?
It's private property.
And we get the first Sully tomahawk save! This may seem camp, and it certainly is. You have no idea how far Sully and his tomahawk can go and will go. God, I'd be excited if I were you. The army at this moment is way chiller than they will be later in the series, so they just walk out. It's Colorado, and Dr. Quinn needs a horse and a reality check. Sully continues to make their meetings memorable by hoisting her booty onto a horse. That's okay, she's into it, I promise. She is into it, okay? Look at that rascal, carrying it in his teeth like an anime smooth guy. He is an anime smooth guy. Answering her advertisement for a place to stay, Sully becomes a landlord, as he owns a homestead that he doesn't live in. This adds more to his mystery. Perhaps he has a tragic past? Who is this silent man who doesn't treat her like anyone else does, challenges her instead of dissuading her from her goals? He helps her, but doesn't baby her. He instantly sees her as a capable person, willing of respect. What a guy.
What do you think?
Not much of a shingle.
How much?
$1 a month?
God, that's some sexy landlording there.
Sully's a miner. Come out here in '59 with the Pikes Peak rush. Fell in love with Lauren's daughter, Abigail.
Storekeeper?
That's right.
He acted like he didn't even know Sully.
Abigail died giving birth to their first child. Lauren blames Sully. Lauren's the bitter man. He just needs to take it out on somebody.
We'll get to Lauren. His actor hasn't arrived yet. Charlotte and the children help Dr. Mike fix up the place. Brian instantly puts his dirty, gross hands in her bag, her medical bag, and we get awful kid dialogue.
This Dr. Mike.
Brian, put that back in there.
No, that's all right, so long as you're careful.
Looks like a tomahawk.
You get all the typical fish out of water stuff with this episode.
Did you ever use a broom before?
Did I ever use a broom?
It's like the horse, isn't it?
We had servants.
And she's a much better sport about this than I would be. She just sees it as an opportunity to learn and grow more, and it's so cool. Her insecurities are now starting to show. In quick succession, she sees Sully talking shit, people openly ignore her, and the town refuses to let her see a man that is literally shot and dying.
I'm a doctor. Let me...
Get him over the shop. Come on. We don't need her help.
Another woman just collapses, and Dr. Mike tries to treat her before her husband drags her away.
It's just one of her spells.
Her heart's pounding.
Of course it is. You're all right, ain't you, Maud?
Just all the excitement. You have an arrhythmia.
Mind your own business.
This woman dies very soon.
What did Chief Blackkettle say to you when I rode up?
You want to know who you were?
What did you tell him?
Told him you were a medicine woman. You come from the East. He said among whites, only men make medicine. So you must be a crazy white woman.
The first hint of Dr. Mike's notoriously bad cooking is teased when Matthew shows up, saying that Charlotte needs her help delivering a baby. With an almost art house grittiness, our first medical drama is played out as Dr. Mike gives great child-rearing advice.
Hold him upside down.
Upside down?
Do it. By the heels, slap him.
And saves 2 lives. It was a good first case, and you get to see more friendship develop between the two. we have to be upset for the death later. For this next part, I will have to acknowledge a character whose actor hasn't arrived yet. Dr. Mike will have respect, and she'll earn it any way she has to when lives are on the line. She decides to reach out to the town barber, Jake, who has been doing some doctor work, sewing up cuts and popping pimples and the like. She sees that he has an infected cut on his hand. When he turns down treatment, she pulls out the big guns.
I can't seem to cure this toothache of mine. I'd appreciate a second opinion.
He calls her bluff.
Looks bad.
What do you suggest?
Pull it.
But then she does a swapperoo, calls his bluff.
So I entrust myself entirely to your estimable care.
What's that?
Pull it.
She lets him yank out her completely healthy tooth. No pain meds, not even a shot of whiskey. She doesn't even say anything. Look at that scene.
Do you believe I feel better already?
While paying, she slyly gives Jake ointment for his cut and gets all the back pats.
This ointment will take away that infection.
What a woman, what a legend. Though she showed that she's tough, she still is having trouble getting in patients. Charlotte reveals that her husband is still alive, but ran off on her and her kids. The father will reappear later for some bullshit. By the way, Dr. Mike talks to her about a fiancé who died in the war, who also reappears later for some bullshit. The negotiations between the Cheyenne and the army have come to a conclusion.
Shivington threatened war unless Black Kettle surrendered to reserve south of Sand Creek.
But why?
Because he wants to impress the brass back in Washington. Get him to grant statehood, so he can become the first governor.
Well, it's hardly a negotiation.
Shivington didn't come to barter. He come to steal.
Pretend Jake thanks Dr. Mike for the ointment and refers her to an actual patient who's played by an actor I will not acknowledge because he's also not that character yet.
You know Robert E?
The blacksmith.
You might want to ask him about his lumbago next time you're in town.
He didn't even want to sell me a horse.
Yeah, well, fact is, I asked him to let you take a look at it. I'm sick and tired of hearing him carry on.
Well, I guess that's gonna have to do until a new doc gets here.
New doctor?
The Reverend said he put out a new advertisement.
You placed another advertisement for a doctor when that position's already been filled.
I don't mean to offend you, Miss Quinn.
Dr. Quinn.
But that is a matter of opinion.
Whose opinion? Have you polled my patients?
I'm not aware of you having any patients.
Jake Slicker, Emily Donovan, Robert E.
I think that we should just calm down.
Perfectly calm. I'm just waiting for an answer.
There's no time to fight when death is here. Charlotte's been bit by a rattlesnake and dies. I told you. With her dying breath, she entrusts the kids to Dr. Mike, who is less than thrilled. The kids are grumpy little bastards and aren't kind to Dr. Mike, and she's just exasperated.
Now, wait a minute, Matthew. I never claimed to know anything about being a mother.
You're not going to be our mother.
I didn't mean that. You know what I mean. I'm just not good at being a homemaker. Most doctors aren't, and that's what I am, a doctor. I was hoping that we might learn from one another.
Then we get some Brian bullshit.
I want to go home. Brian?
Where do you think you're going?
I'm running away to Louis Cheyenne.
And then more Brian bullshit that sends Marge into another spell. Slowly, she forces care on the people around her until more are reaching out themselves. Moira, a sex worker in the small-town saloon, gets a much-needed examination and gets harassed by the ruffians inside.
I've given Myra orders to remain chaste for a month.
Chaste.
She doesn't work.
She works for me.
Unless you want to take her place, lady.
And Sully's surprise, he beats the shit out of them. Tomahawk! Kickflip! Sully! Just so much action all at once, ending with a tiny little hand swipe. The rumpus in the saloon distracts from the fact that Brian sucks, and we get reminded of his little
I hate you
when he runs away. While riding blindly through the woods, a group of Cheyenne find her and try to help. Dr. Quinn mistakes this for kidnapping, but checks herself when Sully, now here to translate, explains what's going on.
Black Kettle says his people will search for the boy as soon as it's light enough to see.
Thank you.
How?
Ow.
Ah. Oh.
Ow.
They share a tender moment in the teepee. I'm so glad this show doesn't have a will they, won't they. There's a very obvious when will they. From the moment they meet till the moment the show ends, these two can only be horny for each other. It's its own palpable character, this lust they have, and the kinship is so instant that you don't even question why they're always just finding reasons to be with each other. Seasons before they're even doing the dirty, they're out in the woods, they're having dinner together, they constantly gravitate towards each other, and they don't even question it or try to put a label on it. It's an instant friendship, it's an event, their love, and it turns even my jaded heart into a big mushy ball every time.
I will love you all my days.
The plot, yeah. They find Brian, he's fine, he's got a broken something or other because he's a dumbass. The kid's mother's not even cold in the ground, and I'm insulting him, I'm a horrible person, and it's all his fault. Another thing ruined by Brian. Do you hate her now, Brian? Answer the question, Brian! Meanwhile, the townsfolk see the Cheyenne search party looking for Brian. Under strict government rule, they're not allowed to travel in big groups outside of the reservation. So the townsfolk calls in the army, who are looking for any excuse to be violent.
Forward! No, wait!
In a daring interference, Dr. Mike literally jumps between the two, shouting, "No!" She explains that they were helping them find her son, and they would have none of this, thank you. You sure told them, Dr. Mike. Maud dies. You know, the one whose husband won't let her see why she keeps collapsing like she's going to die. Guess we know now. Dr. Mike is disheartened when she gets a letter from her mother. After asking her for advice on raising children, she responds like an ass.
I won't pretend not to hope that you will give up this lark. You're a civilized woman, not some rustic. As for my advice on child rearing, come home, settle down and raise a family of your own.
These letters take weeks to get back and forth, and you pull this passive-aggressive bullshit? Yeah, you cried, Dr. Mike. You let it out. There's a knock at the door in the dead of the night.
Black Kettle's been shot.
Put him on the table.
Eat you. Right. Shimington and his men ambushed the village, burnt it to the ground, massacred nearly everybody.
She MacGyvers a triectomy with a feather, removes a neck bullet, and saves Chief Black Kettle's life. She offers to let them hide from the army in her barn. The army rides by, and some evasive maneuvers need to happen. Afraid of being recognized, Dr. Quinn throws a blanket on her head and gives her best Western accent.
Can I help you?
Frankly, it's adorable.
Help yourself.
She slips at the very end, and nobody notices.
Yes, sir.
Ma'am.
Sully, Cloud Dancing, and Chief Black Kettle are able to stay hidden until the army leaves, and we learn that Sully is afraid of horses.
Afraid of horses.
Really?
And he says this without a note of insecurity.
Yep. Always have been.
The title of this whole shebang gets validated once Black Kettle, in respect, gives Dr. Mike her Cheyenne name.
Chief Black Kettle just gave you your Cheyenne name. Medicine woman.
All is not rosy, though. Sully implies that a fight may be brewing soon, leaving the scene unsteadily with what you'll soon recognize as Sully's calling card.
We didn't see Sully again after that. He seemed to disappear into the winter. But with the winter came Christmas Eve.
Snowed in, the family tries to have a good Christmas. Brian asks Dr. Mike if he can call her Ma. Touching. But you don't have to care for long because Sully's here with a puppy! He gives everyone gifts, including a big wooden sign because he really hated seeing Dr. Mike's name so small when it could be bigger. This is a good sign, pun intended, for the future. Throughout the entire series, he has an unwavering support for her profession. He knows that her determination to save lives will always be her first priority, so he makes it his first priority too. Very nice. He starts to leave when she asks him to stay and eat. They spend a very sexy time eating dinner and being wholesome. The kids are there too.
I had come to the Colorado Territory to find acceptance as a doctor. But I found much more. I found a home, a new family, and for Christmas I received the greatest gift of all, the gift of love.
Who is she talking about? She won't tell you. She has her feelings to explore and balls to kick. The most badass moment? Tooth pulling scene, hands down. For the first time in my life, I'll have to say I'm a little tired of talking about Dr. Quinn. Nah, just kidding. If I say that, that's not me. I think we've established a lot of our continuing plot points and kind of the rhythm of what we're getting into. I wish we would have gotten a little more of Cloud Dancing and the Cheyenne, but almost everyone else has been well established. We know who to root for and who to boo for, and we kind of have our plot structure. There'll usually be an A, a B, and a C plot dealing with the different facets of Dr. Quinn's life. Dr. Quinn is a new mother, dealing with one or more of the children with their plot. Dr. Quinn is a doctor, dealing with the townsfolk, fighting the disease of ignorance and, well, actual disease. And most importantly, Dr. Quinn as a woman with an unbridled longing for Sully. And if you think this is a lot to deal with, it is. And we should appreciate her more for that. I really wanted to get into this because as a character, she impresses me. There's a lot to admire with her spirit, stubbornness, and her passion to always do what's right despite the normalized brutality of the time. Her self-introspection and willingness to learn is so admirable, and I think that it's something everyone can strive for no matter who they are in life. Alright, enough of the cheese. If you like this video, there's going to be a lot more to come. This is a 150 episode show. I'd like to try to generate as much hype around this property as possible, because I just found out that Beth Sullivan has already written a reunion movie, and everyone's on board to be in it. The only thing holding it back is the studio and all of us. The more we talk about it, the more demand there'll be. You're probably noticing already how relevant the writing is to today's day and age, and it'll continue to get more and more relevant. Do it for Dr. Mike and me. So, what do you think? Have you seen Dr. Quinn? If so, who's your favorite character? Who's the worst, and why is it always Brian? Are you one of those nasty little freaks that think Hank is sexy? What episode are you looking forward to seeing me cover? Why is Brian so awful? My God! Be sure to let me know in the comments and subscribe if you want more Dr. Quinn content. My coworkers will love you for it because all of this information has to go somewhere and they are sick of hearing about it. Do I have a life?